Hello everyone, and welcome to our dollhouse. It's common knowledge that pure aggro is unviable in Commander. With 120 life to burn through, and 3 boards ready to swing back at you for attacking, many players favor slower or escalatory styles of play. That said, I am not one of these players. Not only is aggro one of the most engaging and interactive ways to play Commander, I believe it to be one of the most viable, taking advantage of the tall, late-game meta of EDH to dash under opponents to the finish line. That said, to reach this level of viability, an aggro deck must be built and piloted with care, with attention to offset the challenges aggro faces in Commander. As a player whose favorite aggro in Commander, I'd like to offer some tips to tune your face-punching machine just right, and maybe sell you on why I find aggro so fun in the first place. This video assumes you already have a preliminary understanding of running aggro decks in Commander, but if you don't, some 101 level guides will be linked below. The first thing to know about aggro is that your game plan comes first. Before you decide your theme, your synergies, even your commander, the first thing you need to know is how you plan to reduce an opponent from 40 life to 0. While there's a variety of options to do this, the best strategies are ones that have ways to close the gap of dealing with 3 players. Using cards that scale up to multiplayer, set opponents against each other, and offer ways to quickly burst opponents down, even from full life. This is a place where I prefer pure combat damage and burn decks to commander damage and poison, as with the latter, only your own actions contribute to the damage buildup. Don't lock yourself to using one type of card, either. Committing too hard into your theme can lead your deck to be more easily shut down by a hard counter. My best aggro decks often run hate bears, token makers, and sources of burn, slowing opponents down and ticking down their life totals while I set up for a total sweep. Once you know how you want to win, break it down into a curve. In order to support your win line, what style of card do you want to play on each turn? For example, a deck built with Aurelia, the Law Above, in the command zone will want to be able to attack with 5 creatures on the turn she's played. Therefore, a curve centered around a disruptive creature on 2, into a token maker on 3, into a value engine to reload on 4, would set you up perfectly to play your commander on 5. From there, an extra combat or damage amplifier on 6 or 7 can lead your snowball into an all-out win. None of these numbers are set in stone, of course. There will be good token makers on 2, or good value engines on 3, but in general, you should build your deck with attention to what cards are self-sufficient early and how they build into your later plays, with a high number of self-sufficient cards early, followed up with cards that benefit from already being ahead on board state. In our example, we resolved an early creature on 2, into a creature on 3 that cared if we could attack that turn, into an engine on 4 that rewarded us for already having built a strong board. By building a curve that consistently sets up into itself to snowball fast, you can speed ahead of other players and run away with the game. Another recommendation I'd have for the curve outlined above is to largely drop ramp as a category from the deck, and compensate by running 40 or 41 lands. With a deck that has a planned curve of playing a 2-drop, into a 3-drop, into a 4-drop, and so on, ramp's purpose of skipping forward on the curve isn't really useful. Running 40 lands frees up room for your game plan compared to 36 to 38 lands and 10 ramp, and improves our ability to mulligan for more than just our land drops. A habit I see some fall into is running few lands for a deck that has a lower curve, but aggro benefits from consistently hitting its land drops turn by turn. If you aren't sure how many lands your deck needs to play out its curve, check out Salubria Snail's land base calculator. It's an excellent metric to measure how consistently your deck plays out, especially one that's trying to play on curve. While close attention to the structure of your deck will help make it fast, the right kinds of cards is what will help keep it consistent. Aggro won't necessarily benefit as much from the same commanders, ramp, card draw, or removal that the standard commander deck does. When you live in the fast lane, you're going to need cards that survive when you crash. Just because a card would be good in 60-card aggro deck, doesn't mean it should be run in commander aggro. While the mana efficiency of your damage dealer matters, card efficiency is a higher priority in a slow format. This means running individual cards that can do a lot of damage over the course of a few turns. In Commander, a Harsh Mentor is a preferable burn spell to a Lightning Bolt. As aggro can be prone to running out of cards, the best cards to run will be individually efficient cards that can make an impact on their own and do not rely on other synergies and plays to get off the ground. Cards such as Anointed Procession or Fiery Emancipation have a hard time in aggro, as they are entirely reliant on establishing a board state separately, leaving them as dead cards in hand if you're playing from behind after a board wipe. Aggro decks generally want to run only a few of these board state amplification styled cards, but where you do run them, try to run ones that can trigger themselves and are a reasonable play into an empty board, such as Elspeth's Stormslayer and Gisela Blade of Gold Knight. When it comes to removal, you shouldn't just run the standard package for your colors and call it a day. The interaction you choose for your deck should help bolster its aggressive game plan, making sure you can consistently push damage through. For example, a lot of my aggro decks tend towards running cheap, fast artifact and enchantment removal, as cards like Ghostly Prison and Crawl Space could risk shutting down our go-wide game plan. Another great example here is board wipes. I run a healthy count of board wipes in my aggro decks. If you think resetting the board to 0 in an aggro deck sounds like a bad idea, you'd be right. Instead, I run one-sided sweepers that dodge my own board to open up other players' defenses to swing, often for lethal. Split Up is the gold standard here. At only 3 mana, this card can destroy all tapped creatures before you swing, or all untapped creatures after, an excellent parity breaker for aggressive decks. Cards like Massacre Worm, Elish Norn, and Elspeth's Sun's Champion make for excellent one-sided finishers, while Dusk to Dawn, Raise the Palisade, and Toxic Deluge can help us keep opponents' boards under control while maintaining our own. While I've experimented with many commanders in my time playing aggro decks, I found 2 styles of commander tend to support aggro decks the best. Decks built around fast damage and a low curve benefit most from commanders that can follow up your early plays, often 3 to 6 drops that either refill your hand, allowing you to play out more cards, or boost up your board, allowing you to push for lethality. Putting a payoff for early aggro in the command zone allows you to lean harder into your early curve with certainty that you will have a payoff. For some examples, Timna, the Indomitable, and Marneus Calgar are great draw engine commanders, while Jetmir, Aurelia the War Leader, and Sephiroth Fallen Hero make for great board amplifiers. The strongest commanders for aggro are ones that will both draw cards and buff your board if you're set up. Ones like Winota, Nayali, and Captain Howler. Don't treat these as a requirement though, as these decks can be ones that snowball so fast that it can be so hard to find an even match for them, outside of a high bracket 3 and up. Now that you've built your aggro commander deck, how should you pilot it? Is aggro really so simple as dumping your hand into play and turning sideways? Well, you can sometimes play it out like this. I'd like to point out some nuances to aggro gameplay, ones that demand interactive, political, and downright fun plays. Paying attention to these areas will highlight the strengths of aggro, and help dispel its perception as a deck that unfairly removes a player from the game, and then burns out and loses. The first barrier to entry I've seen players have to playing aggro is attacking. While they develop a board fast, they feel it is rude to attack players early, fearing counterattacks and making enemies. I often find this goes hand in hand with another common idea about aggro. Some will say to leverage your early speed to choose a single player who threatens your deck the most, and target them down to take them out early. I disagree entirely. This practice would be correct if Commander was a pure 3v1 game, but it's not, and leveraging the free-for-all nature of Commander is key to getting away with your attacks. I say to spread the love. Spreading your attacks between your opponents will make it so there is no clear lead, especially if you're taking attacks too, leaving everyone at 30 to 20 life early. By distributing the damage you deal more evenly, you eventually get every player within burst damage range for your deck, without ever alerting the table as the player who's so ahead they took someone out. I only take a player out with my aggro decks if I'm confident I can survive the other 2 players trying to take me out from there. If every player is at 15 life before you take a player out, you only need 30 more damage to push through and win the game from there, rather than another 80. To win with aggro, make sure you are pushing wide, early damage. Don't be afraid to test if a player will take a trade in combat, and treat every life total loss as progress towards your game plan, not just the ones that are part of your final, all-out swing. Another depth to piloting aggro is the question of how many cards to commit to board. I see a lot of players picking up an aggro deck and assume they should play out their hand quickly as possible, only to lose everything when it's swept up in a board wipe. In reality, playing aggro is a careful game of living on the edge, playing just enough cards to keep your momentum going, while holding back enough in your hand that you don't lose to interaction. This often means that playing aggro requires paying careful attention to other players' game states. Try to evaluate things like, who is in the lead right now? Am I at risk of becoming the threat if I play in harder? Can I win from that board state? Is anyone playing like they have a board wipe in hand? Or something to neutralize my board state? I think it's especially important to weigh player sentiment. Aggro rarely has the tools to survive a 3v1 game state, so do everything in your power to avoid being the singular enemy that everyone wants to take out, and instead try to remain only the second or third most problematic deck until you know you have a board that can take everyone out. Even with a deck built for resilience and cards held back for survival, there will be times you have to play from behind. How can the aggro deck win from a cleared board and an empty hand? To me, playing from behind is the most fun part of aggro. While it's great when everything goes right and your deck snowballs out of control, trying to use limited resources to scramble your way out of a bad situation for your deck, and using every last card carefully to barely reach for a win is the most gratifying part of playing a low-to-the-ground deck. Simply put, to win when you have nothing left, you have to use everything the deck gives you to the fullest. Read the board and think about future game states. Is there a line where you can use what you have left in hand and board to take out a player? Can you use a card to make an ally or a deal to leverage political advantage? If all else fails, can you talk your way out of being targeted to dig one card deeper into your deck? Aggro is limited when playing from behind, but this means you can leverage that you aren't an immediate threat to remove either. Even if you don't have cards to play, you can still participate in the political game just by yapping. This strategy doesn't only apply as a last gambit. Every part of the strategy outlined above will be enhanced by talking through your plays. Call out players' bluffs if they say you'll become their archenemy for attacking them, and explain why the Simic player ramping out of control is a threat that needs to be attacked down. I've stopped attacks, deflected removal, and even won games by justifying why I should stay in the game because so-and-so will win if I can't take them out. This is a careful game to play, of course. You will develop a reputation for how you play politically, and known liars and deal breakers will have a hard time stealing the politics of a game after they're known for being a bit shifty. This, though, is a topic I could go on about for a long time, and will be better served by a whole video. That just about covers everything. I hope with these tips you can tune your aggro deck to be the monster of the battlefield you hope for it to be. If you have any questions or additional tips you think help boost your aggro deck's win rate, be sure to comment below. I'll be doing my best to respond to comments, especially deck building questions. Thank you for watching.